Yay! Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of CEO Diaries, my favorite weekly session where I get to connect with all of you, our community members across our different channels, just seeing our live ticks go on. We're now on Facebook group, LinkedIn, and also YouTube. So perfect. We are good to go. Guys, please do say hello in the chat. I'll start. Obviously, most of you do know me. I'm your host for these sessions. I am the CEO of Future Females. And as you can see, I'm not alone. I'm often bringing in our team members or ambassadors, and today is no different, but is a very special session. Today, as you can see, I'm joined by Nicole Mountain, who has been the manager of our Founders Club, which some of you will know was our previous, I say previous, but it's still running now, previous membership to the new platform that we're building, and has, I guess, been really integral to the building of our most engaged communities from the really early days, because Nicole was even actually at the launch of Future Females as a community associate for the venue, the co-working space that we launched in. So even before you were hired, you were still supporting the Future Females community. Anyway, welcome, Nicole. Very happy to have you.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here to talk about community. And yeah, it feels like a really special time just thinking about the timeline that we've had together and the evolution that we're both to sort of step into. So great to be here.
Yay. And I can see people saying hello in the chat. Please do say hi. Let us know where in the world you're joining from. I just flew back to Johannesburg last night, so that's where I'm tuning in from. Nicole, you're down in Cape Town at the moment, right?
Yes, sunny Cape Town, finally. I've just come from London, so it's great to have sun in my body again.
Absolutely. I can see Marietta and Mariska and Leah and Priska. Amazing. Before we dive right into the conversation, just to set the scene for CEO Diaries in case this is new for anyone. You all, I'm assuming, know by this point that we're working on launching a new platform for Future Females. We're launching what we're calling a community-led learning experience, where, of course, you'll get access to the education and training you need to really start or grow your business. But you'll also be doing it as part of a really connected community. So things like group challenges, moderated discussion forums, community events, both formal and informal, just allowing you to grow your network, because we all know, like, our network is not only a crutch for support, which is great when we need it, but it's also how we grow our businesses through partnerships and collabs. So that's the platform that we're working on. And if you're not familiar with that, click through on the link in the caption of any of the channels we're on and go and join the waitlist, because our waitlisters are going to get access first. There's obviously a lot of marketing going out that looks really glossy, sharing with you how cool this platform's going to be, because it is. And we're very excited. But our commitment as Future Females is to always share the real journey of launching, of building a business. And that's really what this session is all about, is taking you behind the scenes, the non-glossy decisions that we're making, challenges we're struggling with, shifts that we're trying to manage. And really the intention is just to help be transparent so that if you come up against the same, you know how to handle it and can learn from our experiences. So that's the intention. There is also a prize. Every CEO Diaries, we give a prize, and we give it to one person who engages with us, because it's much more fun, obviously, when we're having a two-way conversation. So all you need to do is comment, ask questions, share your lived experiences as well, so we can all learn from each other. And at the end of the session, we will pick one person, and you will win your choice of Future Females merch. So could be a shirt, could be a water bottle, could be the tracksuit, whatever it is that you like. We'll send it out to you. Okay, so without further ado, one of the reasons I was excited to bring Nicole on for this session is because we're spending a lot of time together behind the scenes is really why. But we're at the point now where we're closing our current membership, Founders Club, and we haven't yet opened the new one. And so, we did a lot of planning, which we're going to go into, around how to engage, but also excite our members who really do value the current offering, but excite them about the change. And as humans, we often resist change. But we're also now in a difficult position because we've almost finished our current plan and we still don't quite have the new platform. So I think that's the tension we're sitting in. And we'd also love ideas from you guys as we go into this discussion. But Nick, I think to start with, I mean, I introduced you and how we crossed paths and your current role, but I think it would be great to share how you got into your current role and specifically how you landed in this world of community.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. It's really great to see the names popping up in the comments. I hear the word community manager, and I know so many, even within our team of community managers, and community manager doesn't really capture what we do and what I do and what I have been doing. I always say I was a researcher and writer. First, I loved economics as a student and sort of found ecosystem startups as a bypassing way, which is really fitting. And so my contributions to this space has really involved building physical community. Lauren mentioned that we'd met at the launch of Future Females, and that was my first big girl role at Barclays Africa. Barclays had essentially worked on an open innovation hub within the bank and build 7 sites around the world: London, Manchester, New York, Tel Aviv, Vilnius in Lithuania, Mumbai. And I was employee number 1.
You still roll them off like that, Nicole. That's impressive.
I always, and so I was really employee number 1 for our site in Africa, based in Cape Town. And my colleagues and I would always sort of have trouble introducing ourselves, and would joke, who are we? Because we were really fostering relationships for our founders across those other 6 sites, right? And so we would say we're professional networkers on behalf of our founders. And so I was really early in the community and ecosystem space and saw that I was early. Once I made the decision to pivot from working in a tech hub environment to building online or digital communities, and that's where we've been successful, or I say I would be successful, because it boiled down to maintaining, and I know I'm giving you a lot, but I'm sharing all of this for a reason. It boiled down to maintaining the human and commercial element for me. I was still just spending 80% of my time listening to what founders' needs were. Really diving deeply into who they were, what their end solution was, and excuse my French here, but having a really strong bullshit detector for their benefit so that I could put them in front of the right people and share the necessary resources with them. And so I share all of this with you in the community because I've transferred all of those experiences in my role at the Founders Club or in Future Females, right? And I think with the balance of like researcher and data nerd and having the marketing team behind me going, you need to do more of this. The founders need to react to this, or Facebook is seeing engagement there, and me going, oh, okay. Even I'm relearning a little bit more about, community and social within a social media sort of setting. And so that's the short of the long. I hope that helped.
No, Nicole, that was perfect. And I think you're so right, because the term community manager means so many different things. It can mean someone who literally community manages a Facebook group, but Future Females is a community. That is our entire business model. And so I think when I think about your role, and I hope you don't mind me sharing, but you're not the biggest fan of ambiguity, and your role is the one that's changed the most as we've evolved the business. So I'm definitely grateful that you've been riding the wave with me, but it hasn't come without its challenges, but hopefully without its joys too. I think let's take it into Founders Club. And guys, just so we can understand where you're at as well as we dive in, can you share in the chat, for your business, do you have a community already, or are you looking to start a community? Just give us a gauge for where you're at. And perhaps also, do you have a paid community? As I know some of you, I'm recognizing some names from Founders Club, I know are also exploring memberships. Yeah. So I think, Nick, let's start with our initial strategy, right? We knew that we were shutting one offering and starting the next. What was the plan for how we were going to excite and engage people over?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to think about exactly a year ago, right? We knew we were looking to sort of go into this inflection point where we wanted to become even more digital while really maintaining the community and relationships with the founders that we were building. And so we had to pivot sort of the way that we saw the offering and the events, or really the program that I've designed, right? So I'm going to answer the question concretely, and then if any follow-up questions come from you, Lauren, we can do that. We had to make sort of like a difficult decision to go, we know what works and what isn't working, but what is working for who? And so going into like customer segmentation stuff. But what it came down to is cutting down the number of live sessions and sort of programs within our schedule. And I'm going to answer one of the questions you asked, around cutting and what was working, some of the live sessions not working. I would argue and rebuttal that the lives were exceptional for the founders who are in Founders Club, you will know, and for those who aren't familiar with what Founders Club was, essentially we were building program and curriculum around sort of distributing channel for knowledge, resources, and relationships, and all really focused on marketing, profitability, and holistic wellness. And we can dive into all of that. But I say that the lives have been exceptional in the sense that it worked for the founders who had existing businesses and just sort of reached the point of being post-revenue, and that we had learned a lot from that within our acquisition, just bringing sort of like anyone and everyone in. And so we really were successful, sort of, and it answers the same question, for supporting side hustlers and in-business founders. And so I would say after rewriting the existing program, we overwhelmed our members. We sort of like introduced office hours because we came from a place of love and support. We wanted to be there at every touch point, even though we were taking things away. But as a consequence, still ended up overwhelming them. And then I rewrote the value proposition and made it clear that we don't want you to be joining every single event on the program for the Founders Club members. Join the sessions that align with where your gaps are and where you need support, because realistically, it makes no sense to join a session for the sake of joining. What do you need has been my most important question. And then join so that you can implement something this week where you will see a green light signal, whether that be in revenue or operations. Do that. And so even though we were in this challenging sort of like ambiguous phase, which I thrive in, it's just like I like to like nail us down into simplification. And so I would say it's been a really successful sort of experiment with us reworking and sort of wanting to introduce the new iteration. Does that answer the question?
It does. I want to pick up on a couple of the things that you just said, because I see quite a few people in the chat saying looking to start a community. And the question, what do you need, is always the best starting point. If you're thinking about what is my proposition, whether it's a free community or whether you are looking at monetizing a membership, what do you need? And it's so often not exactly what you think it is. At least in our case, that discovery has highlighted so much. The second thing I think is really important you were touching on is the live experiences. And I guess this is not specifically about community, but more about relationships, right? Even if you're a personal brand on Instagram, you always have so much more response when you show up like this, like we're showing up right now, because I'm actually sitting here and you're actually on that side of the screen and we're conversing, rather than sharing a post that, the photo was taken 3 weeks ago and someone else drafted the copy and it just isn't real. So I think that those relationships and your focus on those relationships has been so important. And then the third thing, to build on one of your points, how I define community is not just a relationship between your audience and you as a brand, but relationships between your community members. That is where the real benefit and strategic differentiation of building a community comes in. And Nick, I'm sure you're going to want to add to this, but I think that's something you also have done so well. And if I was going to speak to any of all these people saying they're thinking about starting a community, create digital and physical, right? Physical events, spaces where your members meet each other, because that bond will stay, and you're kind of the identity around it. Do you want to build
Absolutely. That was so perfect because it leads us into like the segue that I've been also waiting for. So if you're thinking about you wanting to build community, you must ask yourself why. Is it because you've seen future females, in my opinion, doing a really good job and you want to hop onto the bandwagon and hopefully sort of find a revenue stream? Or have you know, Lauren, you call it like shiny object syndrome, right? And I think most people are sometimes guilty of that. And as I said, we're in the business of experimentation, but really be honest. I'm going to stop myself. Can you hear the drilling or no?
No, it's fine.
Okay. And so ask yourself why community. And when I'm asked this question in an interview or by Lauren or our community members, I've been consistent in my answer because it's maybe not very sexy and glossy, but because we're in the business of people. And the more sort of business, sort of commercial strategy answer to this is community management is really focused on voice of customers and being the voice of the brand. As a community manager, or as community managers, you are the advocate of the brand as well as the advocates for the customer. So got a super sweet spot and a big responsibility, in my opinion, which I sort of withhold to a high standard. And in that position, you build customer relationships and ensure the existing customers are satisfied and engaged. And so within our context, as I said earlier, we've really been a distribution channel for knowledge, resources, and relationships. And so if you're thinking about starting a community, you've got to ask yourself, why are you doing this? And I would say maybe I will actually just go into, I have some points prepared here, but become clear on the following, like what's the goal? Internally, I asked this to Serena and Lauren and any sort of team member who I work with, like, what's the goal internally, right? What are you looking to do? And then for you and for the customers, the thing that you're selling, like, what is the product promise externally? I.e., what are you delivering? Are you a community of communities? Are you selling a product or service? And then so once you become clear on those things, deliver that. Right. And I'm going to stop there, but I've got some more to add on that, but deliver that. And I'm going to end actually with this takes work. If you're building a community for the sake of building a community and having an additional and sort of passive income stream, join the rest of the people who came and went because it won't work. You're building a moat around your business. You've enlisted people to support you, so serve them, amplify them, and have the exchange in value, have it be concrete. Inspiration is not enough, guys. And I always say this, I am not in the business of selling sort of a fountain dream. We're not in the business of that. When you meet with me and one of my team members and you engage a program that I've designed, I ask you why you're here and to tell you what you're going to get out of it. If that scares you, you're passive or you drop off, despite the nurturing, you're not in the right community. And I focus my efforts on the women building products and services, and that's it really. And so I would almost advise, be that bullish, but within your context, while maintaining the bigger picture. And Lauren, maybe you can speak to the bigger picture because I've drilled down quite fast.
I know, but this is why I really wanted to have you on this session, Nick, because you are like the slave driver behind the community, but that's how people have been getting results. So, I mean, guys, if you're not already convinced, Nicole's going to be inside this new platform as part of your support team. Obviously, I'll also be there and the others that you've met, but as you can see, she's not going to let you fail. I mean, so much of what you just shared is like wildly valuable, and it's definitely not easy. And I think what you said about, and maybe I want to separate it a little bit. You know, you said there's the community, but then there's also the product. And I think that's important because I've done this wrong before. I've tried to build a community around only the product, but actually community hustles around purpose. And so, you know, for all of you, again, sitting here saying, I want to start a community, or maybe you've started, but you're not getting the traction that you need, something that we did really well from day one, and it maybe wasn't that intentional, it just was organically Serena and me, was it's all about the purpose. And it's quality and it's what drives the transformation. But people unite around that purpose. Like if you are passionate about female entrepreneurship, even if you're not an entrepreneur yourself, or you're aspiring to be one, or you have been one, you're going to be united around this greater purpose because it's actually bigger than us. It's about us coming together as a community of women in the world to all unite as a collective to right the wrong of gender inequality in the world. So that is, and if I think, I'm not sure if some of you have heard the term, and Nick, you can tell me, like cult brand. And a cult is one where like people say, I am a future female. And like, that is very hard to do. But when you can do it, you become part of that identity, and the tribe that identifies themselves in that way is like almost unbreakable. That's the true moat. And you do that by the purpose that then filters to the culture of the community, then filters to the deliverables, I would say.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I could also speak to sort of like how the lessons around maintaining retention, because it's intersected. It's been product and community, but like purpose being in the middle of that Venn diagram. I don't know if that's where you wanted us to go before I jump in.
I think let's do that because, and guys, just to share, please do ask your questions as we go through. This is obviously a massive topic, but as you were about to do, Nick, I think it makes sense to, split acquisition of community members. Like, how do you bring new people in if you are just starting and focused on growth, but also retention? How do you keep someone in your community, not just for the transaction, but for a year, for 3 years, and bringing their community in as well? So yeah, Nick, definitely share some of what's worked and what hasn't worked on the retention side. That would be great.
Yeah. And so Lauren and I, or the marketing team and like product team or community team, we've always sort of like worked really well in having a split between acquisition and retention. And sometimes there was like a healthy sort of friction for us to work together better. But I think this runs through any sort of team, company, corporate, right? And so what I've learned from a retention standpoint is when it came to the value proposition, we started seeing the numbers go down in terms of retention. You want to keep it stable and churn go down. With the product value proposition, after spelling out what we do, because it wasn't completely clear. I mean, Lauren, I hope you don't mind, but it wasn't completely clear.
It wasn't.
When I joined like 20 months ago, so almost 2 years ago now, and I came in as a consumer first, which is with every sort of new role that I do, I come in as a consultant and tear it apart to break it up to build it up again, right? And so I thought this was interesting. I see what we're trying to do around the portal, the community sort of aspect with a member directory, hoping people speak to each other. But at the end of the day, it was a web page, and it was not stagnant, but static. But there was no
energy. Yeah, there's no energy in it. But also, Nicole, we even Founders Club, before it was called Founders Club, was just called membership. Guys, if I could give you any advice, membership sounds like you're going to pay for something and you don't know what it is. Like, I heavily advise you not to call your membership. That definitely didn't work. The other thing that really didn't work about it was people didn't know who it was for, right? And a community, and you might touch on this, but it's only as good as its members, and you want to be surrounded by people who lift you up, or at least are at a similar stage to you. So there is that give and take. And I think that's another of the things we were really, really missing when it was just membership. Everyone was so excited because it was a new offering. And then they got in there and they were like, oh, but this isn't really for me. And there's all these diverse people in here that I don't really have value in connecting to. So I'm absolutely, when you came in, things were a bit of a mess.
And so I had to go in, right, and had this amazing opportunity, which I always I thank Lauren very inappropriately, like in the middle of the night sometimes. I've not sent you a love note in a while, but I saw it as a really big sort of like responsibility and such an opportunity to service or serve the entrepreneurs who I've met in person before. But anyway, so I went in, I redesigned it, and really and saw, okay, we are an educational platform providing female founders with resources around marketing and sales, i.e. profitability, and then holistic wellness engagements and master classes for the inspirational component. Because at the end of the day, what I saw is like, they want the founders who I was sort of helping and building relationships, and where my network of friends came from, which was these like high-tech businesses. These were solopreneurs and they were building alone, whether they were communities and future females and Lauren Dallas and Serena, who were really like in the business of supporting those solopreneurs. At the end of the day, they were building alone. And so to have failure and successes reflected back to them was massively important. So of course I've oversimplified that, but it gives you the gist quite concretely. And I'm going to go into how this is translated beyond sort of our metric around retention, but the results that we look for. And so I'm going to share 3 stories or testimonials really quickly. So I spoke about building a program or redesigning it because we were an educational program, right? And so we offered the bundle, so courses around those marketing and sales topics, and then office hours, which were live sessions across different functions in the business. So think about marketing, legal, finance, operations, and then branding. And you've all met the wonderful Kirsty, who's been on, I think, the session before mine. And then the master classes, which was the inspirational components. So essentially speak to somebody who's been in the mud with you and not just like an expert. And so if I think about results around that, and after sort of like looking at what stuck in terms of retention, one of our members, Sarah, who's from Croatia, I think about her like getting into Launch House, which is this incubator, and preparing her for her first investment check, after like being super diligent in attending the finance office hours. And then I think about Lolo navigating her first big legal topic, which is scary, within her business, and me being able to put her in front of our resident attorney for legal office hours. That's success, right? And we could only do that after we sort of like narrow down. The last story I will sort of share around this is Loida, who's just raised, or won actually, 50,000 Rand for an online bikini and lingerie brand, which, by the way, she lives on the portal and really dedicates her time to the playbooks and masterclasses and bundles. And that's it right there for anybody who's in the Founders Club and not, or looking to build a membership. That's it right there. Entrepreneurs who look for a vitamin or the quick fix, that's not the way we do things here. You need to dedicate the time, engage the resources, apply and test within your business, and then see the results. Because the testimonials or success stories that I shared with you now came from hustle on top of our hustle to try and deliver this membership.
Yeah. And I think, linking that back, Nicole, which is such an important point, to what we did wrong at the start, is aligning to your customer persona. And everyone knows that you should have a customer persona by this point, right? But we don't necessarily always realize how valuable it is to keep going back to it. And now we do this. I mean, we aim to do this quarterly and update it and really represent a real person. But one of the reasons that's important is even what Nicole was saying, honing in on the attitudinal criteria that would retain someone. Being like, a solopreneur, well, I guess that's more demographical, but anyway, being a solopreneur without a support structure. So you want to lean into community because you don't have your own community support structure. And secondly, like, you have a predisposition to learning and you want to put in the time to upskill yourself. It's not just about outsourcing and systems. And then thirdly, like, there's going to be a hustle. Because if you build a community, and specifically we're talking about retention of paid members, which is more trackable also, you don't want someone who signs up for a month and is like, oh, it's not like on a platter and then churns, and churn being like leaves, right? So yeah, I think I just want to answer this question of Lauren's while we're discussing this. How long did it take to get the correct value proposition aligned to your audience and then retain the community? This is a great question because I don't think you're ever there. The frustrating or exciting thing about particularly an online community is that it's ever evolving. Like, what female entrepreneurs need now is very different to what they needed pre-COVID. If I think about the platform we're building now, it is technically the next iteration of Founders Club, but we're trying to build for what our members are going to need 5 years from now so that it doesn't become redundant. Retention also, like, it comes down to daily effort, if I can put it like that. Community, and particularly subscription models, it's amazing because it gives your business like predictable revenue, gives you a lot of security and like calm because you know you're going to be able to pay the bills next month. If you're looking to exit, it gives you a really good market valuation because it's predictable future earnings, but it's not as easy to sell as a one-off product, if I can say. Please, guys, pop your questions in. If I can, I have a few more, but I'm also conscious we've already hit half an hour, Nicole. You and I could speak forever. If you have questions around how to start a community, how to retain your audience, I think is a real strength of Nicole's we can unpick, and how to keep them engaged so you don't feel like you're kind of posting and creating for this black hole. Maybe while these questions are coming through, there is one from, let me ask you a question and then we'll come to Mariska's. Yes. I am curious, Nicole, what has been the hardest thing for you in your role, or the most difficult decision that you've had to make?
So when you ask that, do you mean just generally, or when we talk about the evolution? Because I do have an answer for the evolution, like closing things down and starting new things, or just what is difficult about community? You could answer both.
I mean, it sounds like you have an answer to both. So let's start with the juicier one.
Yeah, I think, so all of you, we know most of you, and for those of you we're meeting for the first time, hi. But so as Lauren and I have sort of outlined that we're closing down the Founders Club and evolving and into our new product, the Future Females platform. And our members, we want them to come along with us. And we've been really successful in sort of we want to do a lot more, but making it clear that the relationship's not ending, and you're coming along with us. And we've been really, you hear this a lot with product companies, we're building with and for the community. We've done that. We've been doing that, being quite manic and obsessive about engaging their data points. But you've asked me this before, but what has been the hardest thing to manage internally? Like I saw Founders Club as like my baby, and I'm choosing to close something down and how to navigate that. And so for me personally, I will share quite candidly, when you're in this stage of pivoting and changing, you start to question as a founder as well, I'm sure. You question your impact, even though it's been the center of all of your efforts, right? But it's really been a reminder that we are all in the business of experimentation, and to scale, change has to happen. So I've been really good at separating my own feelings from the business side, but it's not always easy, even though this is what we do. And so I've had to have like enlisted friends of mine who've been in similar positions, sort of like building stuff, closing it down, and realizing that, it's not only what is showing up in my work context is a personal sort of blocker of mine as well. Like I thrive in change. I just need a minute. and so we've had lots of time to prep, and so I'm really excited and our members are equally as excited for this new iteration. But it's come from me having to be prepared, right, to sort of tell them about this amazing thing that is coming, and I've seen that energy sort of flow into the community.
Yeah, but Nick, I mean, we have spoken about this a little bit offline, and it's definitely a sentiment that I share. And, for everyone tuned in now, I'm curious about your own experiences with this. But, often in business, you have to take a step back or slow down to then be able to scale. But for someone like me who's very growth oriented, or for any founder who's like, we need to be selling to make money, sometimes when you take that step back, that's when the self-doubt really starts coming to the surface. And I mean, Nicole, you know this, and I've shared with you, but for everyone else, like, my gosh, I've had that. This has been a 9-month build when we haven't really done anything else. And so I start to look at like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Is the community still excited? Am I going back to day one after 5 years? Like, I'm old now, all these self-limiting beliefs that I'm sure once we've launched, sorry, my hair's everywhere. Once we've launched and are growing again and getting good feedback, they'll be gone. But right now, and when you're sitting in planning or even in building, it can really make you question your, as you said, your impact and your why, and even your personal worth. Like, am I cut out for this if I have to start again and someone else doesn't? They're just continuing on. Which I feel is important to share because it's such a big part.
Massively. I'll build on, which is like quick, like 15-second sort of build on that. But I have someone really close to me who mentors me, like, personally, and she knows me super well, right? As well as you and Serena will know me with all my quirks as well. And she goes like, Nicole, you're too good at over preparing, and you think you can hack the pain or the discomfort. Because I can tell you everything that I know and everything I don't know, and I want to hack it by bypassing by as much information as I have, right? And the trick here is really, and the trick here is really, like, you can do that to a certain point, but the main thing that is going to help you recover, whether it's change or like changing your team, your business, is to go through it. And I don't want us to go too sort of woo-woo with this, but that's really it, is to be clear, like, yeah, we are in a transition phase, and transition is difficult. And then but you need to keep building. Don't just feel sorry for yourself, and keep momentum. And then you sort of, the vicissitudes, they pass. And as you say, it might feel like you're starting from 0 to 1, but you're starting like year 5, and then to 1. And so maybe that was just me sharing a little bit more candidly, knowing that as women, or just as like people, right, in business, we do this very often, and to hear somebody else say it is sometimes helpful.
Absolutely. Of course, we want to just keep leveling up, but to build something truly great, you have to start again from the foundations. And that's why I guess we did make the decision in the end to close current Founders Club to launch the new. Actually, next week on CEO Diaries, the topic is how to manage when everything changes. So for anyone else out there who's like, how do I manage this ambiguity, these self-limiting beliefs? We're going to get a lot more into it in that session, because my gosh, everything has been changing for us behind the scenes, so much more than we could ever have predicted. Anyway, I want to share a couple of the posts that are coming in here. So Shireen, just to celebrate this, I think women thrive when they're in a community that gives them a platform to unveil their greatness, to share and grow. 100%. And I think even the word platform that you're using, this is, why we're referring to ours as a platform. I mean, it's a tech platform, but it's actually like we're building something that allows women to stand on top of it and be great, and allows our creators to amplify their voice and their success stories, and allows aspiring entrepreneurs to access role models like them. It's like an amplification platform, particularly because it's digital. So I really love how you've put that in. And then Mariska would love to tackle this question. How do you build a community without sounding like you constantly want to sell something? Yeah. And Mariska, if you're still on, are you, what do you sell? Or are you wanting to build a paid membership, so paid community? I think that would be interesting. Do you want to start?
I think you should. I think because I think it's a nice one. Think about like Growth Academy and then into Future Females. Think early days. I think that's where that question needs to be answered for.
Yeah, perfect. The phrase that came into my mind as soon as I read this is like story selling. And I think that you could be always selling without people ever feeling like they're being sold to. And so this is an interesting question, because, is it the style of selling, or is it the like frequency, or is it a combination? But I think it comes back a little bit to what we were talking about before, in that a community rarely unites around a commercial offer. I would love to see an example, but it's rare. They typically unite, like I was saying, around a shared purpose or shared values, or even, I don't know if you guys remember Subi jeans, like back in the day. It was like $300 for a pair of ripped jeans. It was like the first kind of cool ripped jeans. And people wanted them because they were buying into a sub-segment of society where they already identified themselves. But it was never about the sell. It was about the identification of purpose, values, or similar community members. So I think, Mariska, knowing you're a dietitian, and so many people have built beautiful communities around this, who are you serving? Are you a dietitian for women who are struggling to lose weight after pregnancy? Because that is a united and shared common challenge that women would want to overcome together. Or are you rather reuniting around values, and it's about fitness and extending the longevity of your life through holistic wellness? So I think I would take it up a level, because what you sell then comes through naturally based on how you're uniting people. So let's say it's a first example and it's about post-pregnancy women. Most of your content is going to be value add. Like, here's a tip that's worked. Hey, Nicole, what has been working for you? Share your transformation stories. But you're always going to filter in, hey, if you need the added support, I have an 8-week program that walks you through it. Someone that does this super well is a very good friend of mine, Angelique. So you might know her on Instagram as the Lean Girl. I'm just thinking of her because she's obviously in the food and fitness space as well. She shares so much free value that speaks to a very specific segment of women, and she filters her course through. It's always open, and she's killing it, but it's quite subtly fed in. And then once a month, end of the month, she does a promotional push. So something that feels like a sell. So yeah, that's my thought. You really build the community around the value first.
Yeah, and I wouldn't add anything onto that because I think it touches all of the bases. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I was looking at time, and yeah.
Yeah,
and good
my
luck.
gosh.
I'm looking forward. I've just captured your full name, so I'll find you on LinkedIn and hopefully on Instagram.
Amazing. Nick, let's do one last question. And let me decide which. I think let's talk about how we're setting up. Understanding a lot of people are kind of in the earlier stages. So if we think about the new platform we're building and the support structures we know we want to have in there, can you share perhaps some of the prep you're doing now, like before the community is even live? How are you getting ready? Because I think that'll provide some good actions for people who are tuned in.
Yeah, I think we've sort of been clear on what hasn't worked, and so we won't duplicate that. And being clear on what has worked and looking to sort of transition that into the platform. And so when I say platform in this context now, I mean the actual sort of like infrastructure, right? And so in there, you already know we'll have courses which you will engage as the educational component, and then for sort of cross-pollination, meeting other founders and that human element of connection, which is massively important. We're looking to really our connection breakfasts do really well. And I think the reason why they do well is because people are quite literally speaking to each other. And so we're looking to how do we embed that into the platform? So not only having a static sort of like directly and where Nicole can speak to Lauren or find my LinkedIn, because then you can just go to LinkedIn. But the prep work has really been about thinking how do we duplicate, replicate, maximize, and sort of create even more opportunities for, I say cross-pollination because that's what it is, but for conversation and human connection, for founders to speak to each other and ideally work together or, refer back. The other part of the connection breakfast stuff are the challenges, and maybe Lauren, you can speak to the prep work around that, but I see it as the sort of like fundamental way to keep people motivated by motivating each other. The Instagram is a way of doing that in sometimes a negative way, but you see people doing well, and so you sort of either feel complacent or it motivates you to do better. And so we see the challenge component of the platform that will do that, where you know who Loida is, you know what she's working on, and if she's working on something that is similar to you, it motivates you and inspires you to sort of like do better. And ideally, you're trying to do better together. And so now I'm catching myself because that doesn't sound concrete enough, but maybe I'll watch this back and be like, that was fine. Lauren, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think it is fine. And I guess it's twofold. Like you were saying, there's prep that we've done based on what we know, like a connection breakfast, where there's literally a space where members meet each other, because those relationships are what makes it sticky. But then also coming back to what you said right at the start, we're just going to be asking you guys, what do you need? You know, if you're on the wait list, you're going to be the first people who are invited in. And it's not going to be a perfect experience. We can guarantee you that, because we're building everything from scratch and it's a lot. So you're going to find bugs, and we're going to incentivize you to share them back with us, and we're going to fix it, and we're going to say thank you, and you're going to feel hopefully like we're all co-creating this beautiful community platform together. Because that's always been the energy around Future Female. So I think it also comes back to community gives you that advantage of two-way communication as well, but you need to ask the question to get that advantage. Let's do one more question, because I do think this is a great one, from Keleneha Mahato. Hello, welcome. In terms of strategy approach, how different is community building when starting a product business via WhatsApp versus mail? Ooh, love this question. It's actually interesting that you ask this, because we've been experimenting with WhatsApp as a communication channel to connect with our community. And I think, and Nicole, I'll start and you can build. I think that WhatsApp is amazing for you communicating with your audience, because people open WhatsApp, right? We're still used to it as a personal channel, so it hasn't quite gone down in terms of open rate like email has. And it can also be a lot shorter and more personal. So we've had great traction WhatsApping our current founders members, for example, and just personally checking in, like, are you joining the platform? Did you know we're doing a live? Do you know we're doing a celebration next week? If any of you are tuned in, I can't wait for that. What it doesn't necessarily do is allow members to build relationships with members until maybe after they've connected elsewhere. So I would say like the breakfast, which is like a live Zoom that Nicole mentioned, is a really nice complement to your WhatsApp communication.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you sort of like added the verses, sort of like, but I'm not going to substack it. I think email is going nowhere, and it's important and serves its purpose. Even though you see sort of like open rates going down, I think it's massively important, and something that I've even sort of like learned to appreciate over time is email marketing. I will never replace it. And then WhatsApp, as Lauren had mentioned, has been really useful for us to sort of convey, not urgent, but sort of something that you want to engage a member with around a notification, or for us, it's been making sure that it's a touch point and a personal one to their direct line, because, you know, mobile, they're always on their phone, which is why there is WhatsApp for Business. So I'm going to be really black and white about this, and I'm not going to say replace one with the other. Both are useful. Yeah.
Do both. Yeah.
I really have I find issue with us trying to find the one thing. You've got to leverage the tools that work for your community or the business that you're building around. And I will never advise you to replace email with WhatsApp, or just to use WhatsApp. WhatsApp is brilliant. And in fact, now I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you've not been on the wait list, we have an incredible creator, Megs Hollis, who has built a WhatsApp for Business course around this. And maybe we're really excited for you to engage that course. But the only way to do that is to go into the wait list. Over to you, Lauren.
No, but I was going to say the same. We were literally talking this morning about Meg's course. Because she's not only been sharing all the strategy, but she's now sent us over 15 or 16 walkthroughs of practically how to execute every single strategy that she's coaching. So I'm very, very excited for that. I think email's going nowhere, but WhatsApp is the fastest growing channel now when it comes to messenger marketing. Yeah. So it's kind of a no-brainer, particularly in markets. And Keleneha, I'm not sure where you are, but across Africa, and I'm making a big assumption, but we're both sitting in Africa too, WhatsApp is huge. So thanks for the question. I think that we're going to wrap it there, which means that we get to announce our prize winner, which is very exciting. So a quick reminder, every CEO Diaries, we give out a prize, which is your choice of Future Females merchandise. If you don't know what we offer, you can also just see the shop on our Instagram and you can choose anything from there. And so we are going to award it to Mariska. Mariska, thank you for your question, for sharing a little bit about what you do as a dietitian. We really appreciate the interaction and also just joining us. This is definitely my favorite session every week. It's so chilled and it's so nice to have just this interaction. So thank you to everyone who's tuned in. And Nicole, thank you so much for doing this and for prepping and just for sharing so much value as well. I loved it.
Yeah, no, it's been really great. I've really enjoyed the session, and to the Founders Club members, I say this every time we see each other, I am going nowhere, and hopefully neither do you. It's been an absolute sort of honor and privilege to serve you in my capacity as Founders Club manager, and look forward to sort of walking the journey together as we transition into the Future Females platform. This has been great.
Hey, thank you. And then next week, a quick reminder, the topic is how to manage when everything changes. So you're actually just going to have me next week because I want to share like quite a personal account of how I've been coping, I guess. And we've had so many things change. I've had 2 executives leave of the 4 that we started with in December. And had to manage that. We've had many other team changes as well, both permanent and freelance roles. We've had strategic changes. We've had massive hurdles when it's come to our development and the process and the team. Our initial UX designer also had to leave and we had to onboard someone, and the huge gap of time that left, but also the remanagement of budget. So I'm going to be talking through all of that shit, if I can call it, because it really is. But we keep going, and I'll share a little about how, and we can discuss. So hopefully I will see you all next week. Cool. Bye, everyone.